can only be attributable to human error.
You're entering Paranormal.
He meddled in things that you people. He meddled in things. He meddled in things.
Where will we go next? This phantom from another time.
No one, Mr. Muller.
That's it, man. Game over, man. Game over.
That is one big pile of shit.
Hello, I'm Alex Daikaiju.
I'm Jasmine with
I'm Eli Watson.
And we are...
Cryptid
Campfire.
Eli, you're looking a little tired there already.
What a great way to start. I was yawning.
Well, Happy New Year and welcome to our 2022 Cryptid Campfire Kickoff. We are starting off this new tome with a look back on some of our favorite moments and what we've accomplished and experienced with this podcast in the last year. 2021 brought new creative ideas, introduced us to cryptids that we hadn't heard of before, gave us the opportunity to redeem some cryptids that we didn't do justice the first time around, and allowed us to grow in many ways, both personally and professionally. So we completed 2 tomes in 2021. We had our road trip tome and we did our world tour tome, totaling 57 episodes for the year. That includes both our public episodes on podcast platforms as well as our Patreon exclusive episodes. However, our video releases with the Paranormal Network didn't start until our world tour tome. And I'm sure that we're going to talk about that whole aspect of our podcast later. But the first thing I want to do is I want to ask you guys what your favorite episode was of 2021.
Ooh, favorite episode?
I took notes.
Ooh, yeah?
Kind of. It's like four bullet points. So compared to our regular notes, it is nothing. Where is it? My iPad labeled my notes as recap 2021 or Rick off instead of kickoff.
Okay.
So, but my favorite episode was actually the first one of the road trip, which was the Lone Pine Mountain Devil.
Oh, okay.
Possibly because that's one that I wanted to do for a while. But also I went up to Lone Pine and almost
That's right.
froze to death at night because I didn't bring the right equipment and it got really cold. And I just remember splurging and getting a really big, expensive breakfast because I was like, you know what? After that horrible night, I deserve this.
Now, did you go on that trip? The trip was after the episode, right? Is that what you said?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Yeah.
But it was like so fresh in my mind. I don't know. It was just like, it's like a corner of my life now. The Lone Pine Mountain Devil. Yeah.
That's awesome. Yeah, I remembered we were worried that like you'd go up to the Lone Pines and we just wouldn't hear from you for a while. I think we were the only ones who knew you'd gone up there.
Yeah.
Well, I think the most surreal part was I was like, I had this blanket. I didn't bring a sleeping bag because whoever put this on the internet, like, should be stopped because somebody is going to die believing this advice because they said a wool blanket was good enough for temperatures like down to 30 degrees Fahrenheit. And it was like 35, 38 that night. And it was not good enough. I was like fully clothed and just like freezing. And I got up at like 3-4 in the morning and it was a full moon. And I remember just getting out of the tent and like seeing just this empty desert like at night and everything was blue. And it was just so surreal. I was like, where am I? Why am I so cold?
Oh man, I think that sums up a lot of people's experience of 2021. I would say looking back, personally for me, my favorite episode would be Nessie Part 3, because we did a 3-parter of Nessie. But the third part's my favorite, just for myself, a little bit of a humble brag. it was my chance to go back to, it's 2022, so a little promo, the Cryptid Coliseum. And we got to do a return to the Coliseum, a return to form, and it was a 3-way triple death match between 3 of the world's greatest lake monsters. And it was fun for me, a way to exercise some of my demons of 2021. And, and if you haven't listened to those episodes, check them out, because we go over Nessie 3 parts, and then we end with a gruesome death match to cap it off.
We do. I do have to say that for me in general, I did have more fun with the road trip tome than I did with the world tour tome. But I think that's mostly just because I had pitched the idea of the road trip tome. So I had like a lot of fun mapping it out and seeing it all the way through. Though
I thought you also pitched the world tour tome.
I did, but the world tour was sort of the world tour was sort of like a natural progression. After we did a road trip, it just kind of makes sense to like expand it into the rest of the globe. But like the initial new idea of doing a tome where we like follow the narrative that we're traveling around the country and visiting different states and learning about their local legends and their cryptids, and like literally having a map in my notes where I like drew out the path with like arrows and all that stuff. That was just really fun for me. Though I am kind of sad that we haven't, as a group, gone on any actual field trips like we always joke about. Like we're always like, oh, we should go there, maybe someday we will. Eli, you've done a lot of traveling because you're doing work with other productions and things like that, so you've had the opportunity to travel and be in the field. And I do always talk about how I walk the walk but I don't talk the talk, because I don't necessarily want to go on a cryptid hunt, but I want to visit locations. Like I don't want to be like camping in the cold in the desert or anything like that, but I'd like to visit the desert and see the desert. You know what I mean?
Well, I've done both on different productions. So like on Chasing Legends, we didn't do any camping. We stayed in an Airbnb and checked out the locations, and did more or less of a cryptid hunt, but it was like contained. It was like, okay, at 11 p.m. we're going to go back. To where what I'm doing now with Small Town Monsters is a little more like, okay, we're hiking 7 miles in up this mountain and we're not going to come back for like 4 days. So, we'll figure it out, and it's not for everybody,
No.
So, but maybe 2022, we could do the Airbnb thing. I don't know.
Maybe.
Like that would be, Lone Pine is a good one because it's fairly close.
Yeah. I did get to visit my family in Ohio over the summer though, where I really leaned in to the idea of Bessie, because we did a Bessie episode in the road trip tome, and I think that link to home kind of made Bessie one of my favorite episodes. And so while I was there in Ohio, I went to Cedar Point, which is on Lake Erie, where a lot of people have said that they've seen Bessie pop up in the water. And I got to go to the restaurant called Melt Bar and Grilled, where I had the Lake Erie Monster Sandwich, which was a Guinness battered walleye fillet with a melted American cheese, jalapeno spiked tartar sauce, and coleslaw. So that was pretty fun. But in that same vein, I also really enjoyed our Nessie miniseries from the World Tour tome. We talked about it at length in the actual episodes, so I'm not going to go too much into detail about what happened, 3 years ago when we first started this podcast. But basically, if you haven't listened to those episodes and you're listening to this one, we did a Loch Ness monster episode at the very beginning of our podcast, like history, like when we first started.
Episode.
It was one of our very first episodes. It was our first episode. And we talked about Nessie for like less than 15 minutes. And and then we ended up having 3 full episodes about the Loch Ness monster in this last tome, which were like over an hour long. And it just really speaks volumes to the ways that our research methods have evolved and the things that we want to talk about and find interesting.
True.
Which leads into my next discussion topic that I wanted to ask you guys about. So I tend to forget a lot of info once we've actually recorded our episodes and I purge it from my mind. But I do still have quite a bit of Nessie stuff up there because it was so interesting. All of the stuff that we explored, like with the exorcism and all of that stuff.
Mhm.
And so my favorite sort of personal revelation / discovery that I had while making those episodes is the current belief that I will stand by, that the Loch Ness monster is a dinosaur's ghost. Think about it. It makes so much sense. No physical evidence for the Loch Ness monster, yet everyone sees it all the time. It's a freaking dinosaur ghost.
Mhm.
Now, I can't take credit for that inception of an idea. Someone on Twitter said it, and my dad sent it to me, and then I was thinking about it, and then I started talking to people about it, and I was like, you know what? I'm with this.
They say there's always been a big push to step away from fossil fuels, and they always say, oh, it's for the environment, or we find a better, cleaner energy. But the real truth of the matter is we want to step away from fossil fuel because the ghosts of the dinosaurs are coming back from the bones we grind up for our cars.
Oh Lord. But what was your guys' favorite discovery or thing you learned? Because like I use the term discovery very lightly because we didn't discover anything, because we're not in the field. We're doing online research, reading books, doing interviews and that kind of stuff. But like your personal like thing you learned, what was the most shocking or like your favorite thing?
I would say we talked about we did some cryptids for the world tour, and we talked about the Tokoloshi. I don't know if you guys remember that. The main feature of this cryptid is it's got 9 butts, supposedly.
Yeah.
So they say that at some
Are you
point
sure?
we'll
Is that
see
the
peanut-
Tokoloshi?
I thought it was.
I can't remember. I'm gonna say you're right.
For this episode, the Tokoloshi has 9 butts until we go back and we fix it. But they say that at some point we'll see the true evolution of life on this planet, and I think the Tokoloshi's it. I mean, 9 butts, 2 legs.
That'd be a nightmare.
I guess my favorite kind of personal discovery was just how paranormal the Loch Ness monster is.
Yeah.
I didn't realize that like it's almost hard to discuss the Loch Ness monster without discussing some kind of wizard,
Yeah.
which is so odd. Like it's so intertwined in the
Or
history,
witches.
or witches, or occult, or
Mhm.
Tiamat. It's just like, wow, what is happening?
Yeah.
Way more wizards in Loch Ness than I ever thought.
I had so much fun with those Nessie episodes. It was very like the load was very heavy because it was not supposed to be a 3-episode miniseries. It was supposed to be one episode. But then we very quickly realized that there was so much we hadn't talked about the first time around that we were like, you know what, let's turn it into a 2-parter. And so we were like, okay, we're going to do a 2-parter. And then in the middle of us like recording our second episode, we were like, there is no way that we can get through all of the notes we have. This has to be a 3-parter. And I was kind of scared that it was going to turn into a 4-parter, but luckily it didn't. But that third episode is pretty long.
It's
but
like 2.5 hours.
It's something like that. But we split it up. I think the way we split it up made a lot of sense. Like the way that we like separated the topics. I think it had a good flow. It made a lot of sense.
Yeah, I looking back, I'm amazed at the progress we've been able to do in the sense of very first episode. Let's talk about 3 cryptids back in 2018, 15 minutes a pop to a couple years later. Now we can do a 3-part issue or three parts special on Nessie, and there was still stuff we had to cut out of it.
Yeah. I mean, 2021 was kind of crazy for a lot of reasons. But I think the most obvious one for us was being invited to join the Paranormal Network and gaining a producer and adding the element of video to our podcast. Kind of piggybacking off of what Alex was saying about when we first started this podcast. For those of you who may not have been following us from the beginning, we had a rough start, I guess. I mean, we have talked about this in previous episodes of our podcast that are available on all of the audio streaming platforms. But the inception of this podcast came from the three of us working together at a movie theater. And we were like acquaintances. We weren't really like super close. And it was Eli and Alex who were talking at work one day and just were suddenly like, we should do a podcast or something like that. And then I remember the moment where we were at the concession stand, Eli, like I was wiping off a counter and you were on the other side of the candy rack and you were just suddenly like, I can't even remember the question you asked me, but it was something like, do you believe in ghosts, or are you interested in the paranormal or something like that? I remember the moment, but I can't.
I thought it was do you believe in Bigfoot?
I don't remember.
I don't remember either.
I don't remember the words, but I remember the moment. And I was super cash about it. I was like, yeah. And you were like, you want to be on a podcast? And I was like, sure. But
Like that. Now we're here.
I mean, that's the thing is like, we truly have grown. Like, think about this, you guys. We were three, I almost said kids, but none of us were kids.
Feels like it.
Three adults working at a movie theater, trying to pay our bills. And one day we're just like, you know what? Let's make a podcast where we talk about weird stuff. And we had our first production meeting, which we didn't call them production meetings back then. We just said, let's get together and talk about it at a Coffee Bean and Tea Leaf, where Eli never showed up because he overslept. And we were both afraid that he died.
Yeah.
Wouldn't that be tragic?
Oh man.
Yeah. Sorry.
Well, I wouldn't be sad. I would be dead.
Oh Lord. But anyways,
be the ghost host on the podcast.
what I'm
Ghost
trying to say is we went from being a very chaotic arrangement of not having the equipment we needed and, you know, having to go drive to where Eli was living after work and him coming to get us and, you know, all of that stuff. We went from that, and the pandemic, you know, brought a lot of issues with it, and we had to start recording remotely, and, you know, we had to get mics for us to have in our homes, and we had to go through all of that. And now here we are 3 years later, after just goofing off, and we were invited by an outside party to produce a video podcast for their YouTube channel. You know, shout out to Jason, our producer. Like, what is this? What is this? We make content that someone else said, hey, I like what you're doing. Let me put it up on my channel. And we're like, okay. It blows my mind. Like, I don't know if I'm like overselling it or anything right now, but guys, we're here. We're here. 2021 has brought us to the point where we make a video version of our podcast. We're streaming on multiple platforms. You know, like I'm sweating.
You hear the term content creator thrown around a lot these days. Influencer, if you will.
Oh boy.
But you know, here we are, years of work, and we're creating content. You know, I dare say we are the stuff dreams are made of.
Oh Lord. I mean, it is funny though. We joked about this a couple days ago because we did have another production meeting, and Eli brought a PowerPoint. Like, he made a PowerPoint for this meeting with like goals and tasks and details and instructions. And I was laughing in that meeting because I'm like, what are we doing? Like, how is this what we're doing right now? Like, this is a real thing. This is a real thing that's happening.
Oh yeah, it's all real, baby. Not like the Matrix.
Mm-mm. But I mean, it definitely has been a process. I mean, what isn't a process? The whole adding cameras thing, like,
Yeah.
and
was
having
a
to
pain.
get a setup of some sort. I set up this little corner in my room that kind of shows off different aspects of my personality. This part being my favorite. This is artwork created by Alex it was Christmas, right? Christmas or no?
I think it was for
Was this my-
Christmas.
You signed
Pretty
it.
sure.
You signed it 2021 though, so it's not Christmas.
2020. Oh, you know what?
Was this for?
Maybe
Mine's still in the original. Mine's still in the original.
Yeah. I want to say I probably started those like 2020 Christmas time, and I probably finished them like the first week of January. Then we all got to meet. And
You know what? That's probably what it was. But we're still navigating the process, looking for ways to improve and grow and make good quality content. I mean, long term, we would love to just like be able to meet in the same place. It's kind of a hassle right now because we all live in different areas of the state. Eli moved away from us a while ago. So, that's why we're still doing this remote.
Do you want me
thing.
to explain why?
I mean, you don't have to. So that's up to you. I'm just stating facts.
You're stating facts?
Stating facts.
Satan?
Satan facts.
Satan the facts.
Oh, Lord.
Stating the facts. Are you gonna explain?
So,
No.
Nope. Eli
No.
Eli shows up, says he moved, doesn't elaborate, leaves.
No.
Yeah.
I mean, I wasn't trying to make a big deal of it. It's just like I said, it's just we if we really, really wanted to, we could meet together, but that would be extremely inconvenient for all of us.
All of us. Yes.
Really hard to do with all of our schedules and the driving and things like that. But I mean, we did used to meet at Eli's house. We had a room set up with our mics and a whiteboard and little cryptid decorations all over, and it was great. And maybe someday we'll actually have like a studio that we can go to. I don't know how. Maybe that's not in the cards for us, but I mean, here we are 3 years later. We didn't think what we're doing right now was going to be possible. We joked about doing what we're doing right now when we started this 3 years ago.
They were jokes for you, but I was stating facts.
Yeah.
I would be like, I want to get to the point where we're getting bills. Jasmine goes, ha ha ha. Wouldn't that be amazing? I'm like, but no, that's the goal.
I'm stating my own personal hopes and feelings here, and the whole room is laughing.
I think that was my way of like not being disappointed if it never happened, just being like, oh yeah, wouldn't it be great? Like positive manifestation. That's what I'm trying to do right now with some things in my life. I'm like, wouldn't it be funny if I did blah, 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 when it's actually something I want to do? Like, wouldn't it be great if blah, blah, blah? Meanwhile, it's like something I'm really hoping for in my heart.
Yeah. I mean, we've been talking so much about living dinosaurs because we want to make them real.
As much as I love dinosaurs and as much as I love the idea of Nessie being a dino ghost, personally, don't want dinosaurs to go.
Well, I think at the tail end of 2021, they found a perfectly preserved dinosaur egg with an embryo in it. I could have sworn they did. So dinosaurs, yeah, could be on the horizon.
No.
2022,
No.
It's the year where we got dinosaurs coming back. And ladies and gentlemen, reality is whatever you make it. That's the power we're bringing.
Crazy.
Yeah, we joked that Cryptid Campfire was a podcast that'll last 1,000 generations.
Oh, Jesus.
We're entering generation 3.
There are not enough cryptids for it to last that long.
That's what you think.
Well, 1,000 generations from now, mankind will be the cryptids.
I mean, that is what I thought. I've said this before too, but I'll say it again. Very quickly in our very first tome, like when we first started doing this, I was tapped out of prior knowledge of cryptids pretty quick into the game. Like you got your big ones. You got Loch Ness, you got Bigfoot, you got El Chupacabra, you know, you got all of those really common ones that kind of everybody has general knowledge about. After we hit all of those, I was like, what else is there? There's so much.
There is. There's still a lot.
There is.
It's I made the Matrix reference because that's how I feel in terms of like you said, Jasmine, tome 1, here's all the cryptids. Oh, there's like, I don't know, 10. And then you really think that's enough cryptids in the world? Just all the shelves start coming by of all the cryptids in the world.
It's crazy. But do you what are your like personal goals kind of moving forward for the podcast? We talked a little bit about it in our last little meeting. I think one of the like major things that we kind of discussed was our attempts each individually to not say or as much.
Yeah.
Silence. Nobody said anything after that.
Well, I don't want to be like,
that's what I really think I'm trying to work on in this coming year.
Yeah. So that's something that we're all going to work on.
Mm-hmm.
I am going to work on not being so hard on myself when it comes to research. We've had discussions outside of being on air multiple times about the level at which I take things seriously, and sometimes I take things too seriously and I let it take over more time in my day than it should. You know, I have to be a little better at time management. That's something that we've talked about. I'm actually really great at time management, but the problem comes where I think I have to spend too much time doing something. I feel like I don't have enough time in the day to do things, but that's because I think things are going to take a lot longer than they actually are. So that's what I'm going to try. What about you guys? Any personal goals moving forward for the podcast? I mean, we have a lot of podcast goals. There's a lot of things we want to do as a production moving forward, which we're not going to share right now. We're
You'll find out. You'll find out.
Yeah, you'll find out. They'll make their appearance, or they'll make their presence known as they come into existence. But speaking personally, like, what's one thing you want to do better going forward in 2022 for Cryptid Campfire?
Anything for yourself, Eli?
I'm trying to think. There it goes. There
He
it goes.
said,
I'm trying to think. This is different though. In terms of the ums and uhs, I feel like this is just a totally conversational bit. I mean, our entire podcast is conversational, but I don't know. I don't know what I'm trying to say. I feel like there's less of a structure to this episode than there is than when we're going through the history of Nessie. You know what I mean?
For sure.
Right. So ums and uhs are now allowed. I don't know, communication skills. I don't know. It's all behind the scenes stuff.
You're right.
What?
The communication skills. We had to have a talk about that a couple months ago.
Sure.
And it is everyone's on everyone's end. It's not any one particular person that was not communicating properly. It was all of us, but we worked it out and we're moving forward.
Yeah, that whole meeting, happened, and then we're like, all right, we're never going to talk about this ever again.
After the meeting, I think we'll switch away from cryptids, maybe do true crime.
Oof.
No.
Still keep the name.
Yeah, Cryptid Campfire talks about Ted Bundy.
Confusing. People would listen to it, be like, what's going on?
Who is this Ed Gein, and when do the cryptids come in? Going forward for myself, personally, for the podcast. One of the things that I like to do, we have a Patreon, if you're unaware out there listening, where we have exclusive episodes, but also I do a wallpaper once a month for the Patreon, usually trying to stick within the theme of the cryptid that month, or sometimes just something kind of neat that I thought of. And going forward, this Christmas I was very blessed to get some new drawing materials to really up my game. So this year I'm looking forward to doing some really cool experimental wallpapers with some cool cryptids in them.
Cool.
Nice.
That'll be good.
I do have one final question that I want to ask you guys before we wrap up this cryptid kickoff for 2022. What is your favorite cryptid? Has it remained the same after all this time that we've done new episodes and been introduced to new cryptids? Is your favorite cryptid the same that it was 3 years ago?
Do you know what our favorite cryptids were 3 years ago?
Yes.
Really?
Do I? Hold on.
I think I know
Yeah.
yours and Alex's.
Wasn't
I don't
it-
remember mine.
Someone was
I-
Yeti, someone was Bigfoot, and someone was Thunderbird. Isn't that right? Were those the three?
Yes. I think
Yeah.
I think you're right.
Yeah. And you know the reason I remember that?
Why?
Because someone drew us as our favorite
Oh,
cryptids.
yeah.
And that's
Wait, what?
that's the picture I'm seeing in my head right now.
Oh, you're right. Someone did draw us.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
Actual bona fide fan art.
Oh, right?
Well, there's my first
They're allowed this episode, remember?
They're allowed.
Mhm.
They're allowed.
and I spotted it too.
There you go.
Well, how the tables turn. Jasmine, is your favorite cryptid a Thunderbird still?
Here's the thing. Yes and no. I sorry, I just got a notification on my computer that low system resources may affect your audio quality. So that's
Whoa.
why I zoned out for a minute. I am very attached to the Thunderbird for a multitude of reasons. I chose the Thunderbird as my favorite cryptid when we first started doing this podcast because I do love the mythological sort of version of the Thunderbird, the very colorful, the very controls the weather, the mystical, the forest god type version of the Thunderbird. I really like. And over the years, the Thunderbird has just kind of showed up in my life in a couple of different ways. One being the story that I told you guys a while ago about the fact that I have a group of friends and we have each assigned ourselves a bird. It's just a thing that we did. Like everyone's got a mascot. We've chosen birds to represent ourselves and we joke about who is what bird. And I chose the Thunderbird to be my bird. And so I'm very attached to it in that way because this group of friends associates me with the Thunderbird. And fun fact, for Christmas this year, one of my friends, they wrote Christmas cards for each of us. And in that Christmas card, they did research on each person's bird. And he, in my card about the Thunderbird, wrote, when I started researching the Thunderbird, I thought I was going to learn about a new species of bird I'd never heard of before. Turns out it's a mythological creature, very on brand for you, Jasmine. And then he just continued to write stuff about the Thunderbird and how he sees the Thunderbird in me and all of this, which was super special and super awesome. And then something also crazy happened while I was home in Ohio for Christmas, which I told you guys both about it when it happened, but I'll share it here on the podcast now as well. I don't know anything about cars. Couldn't name a car outside of a PT Cruiser and a Hummer. Like I know zilch. Don't care for cars. Just want to drive something that won't kill me. Okay. For the first time ever, while I was home in Ohio, I was driving and I happened to notice a car dealership and I saw this car and I literally said out loud, "Oh my gosh, that car is so cute." Like I was with my mom. I was like, "That car is cute." So we went about our day and did our errands. And when we were going home, I said, "Can we drive by that dealership again? I want to see if I can tell what kind of car that is." Drive by, too far away, couldn't tell what kind of car it was, went about our day. A couple of days later, I was out running errands by myself. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to go by that car dealership and see what type of car that is because This is the first car I've ever seen in my life that made me actually go, wow, I like that car. So I go to the car dealership and I pull up. It's closed, so I'm not going to have anybody bothering me, which is great. I pull up right behind the car, and in the driver's seat of the car I'm in, I gasped and I said, oh my God, because the car was a freaking Thunderbird, 2002 Ford Thunderbird. And I was like, this is serendipitous. Like, so I have to get a Thunderbird car at some point in my life. Like, I have to own a Thunderbird at some point. So Thunderbird is very special to me for all of those reasons. But I'm also very partial to the Loveland Frogman because Ohio, love the story of it. It's kind of one of those, there's been multiple sightings, but it's more so focused on kind of the one sighting that happened with like the idea that it's like a wizard and there's like a group of them and whatever. Very, very partial to the Loveland Frogman. I love my Ohio Froggy boy. So I would say those are my top two. Thunderbird has a lot of sentimental value and a lot of, attachment to it. But I also really like, and the art is so great. This frogman art that Alex did, I love it so much. Like, he's so cute.
That the biggest takeaway from doing the podcast for sure is how powerful Ohio is. Looking into research,
It's so true.
I know.
Ohio has so many cryptids and just so many insane. It really is the birthplace of life on Earth.
Yep. So that was my very extended answer to the question, is the Thunderbird still your favorite cryptid? It's yes and no.
Heck yeah.
It's definitely
I-
yes.
It is yes.
Yeah.
What are the chances? A freaking Thunderbird. I don't know anything about cars. I don't care for cars. And the one car that I see in my life where I'm like, wow, car, pretty, want to drive. It's freaking Thunderbird. Anyway, I'm done with that. What about you? Your turn to answer the question.
Okay. It looked like Alex was about to say something. So I was like,
Trying to think of the right way to start it. Did you want to take it away, Eli?
sure. I'll say I switched up mine, actually. It
Okay.
changed. And now I'm stealing Alex's. I
Oh.
would say the Yeti has become my favorite cryptid, mostly because I am writing a book on the Yeti. I think I just fell in love. If you go back to our last Yeti
Fell in
episode,
love with the Yeti.
I just fell in love with everything about it. Like just the 1950s, Tom Slick looking for the Yeti thing, and everything associated with the Yeti is just so cool to me. I'm like, dude, this is like classic. Like, it's the Yeti, bro. I don't know. It's like classic cryptozoology,
Yeah.
I guess. I don't know. It's like, this is it, dude. This is the spirit of cryptozoology. You get all these people together and you're like, yes, we're going to go find it. And you find nothing. It's like, that's so true. That happens. And, other things too. My buddy Carrick, who's been on the show multiple times now, he's real big into the Yeti too. And we've had some pretty lengthy discussions about the Yeti and specifically about the footprints, because the Yeti is always associated with Bigfoot in
Mhm.
terms of like, that's what it's like. It's just Bigfoot in the snow. But then
Yeah.
when you start to look at some of the footprints found, some of the behaviors talked about, you start to realize it's less Bigfoot and more like straight up gorilla or chimpanzee
Hmm.
that walks on two legs sometimes. It's really the foot and everything. It's just wild. It's not the same. It's not Bigfoot, guys. It's not the same. Nothing is the same. But yeah,
That's funny.
that's the Yeti.
Your new favorite,
Yeah, and look, I'm wearing a gorilla shirt.
Nice.
Monkey Boys.
Monkey
Uh,
boys.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about with the Yeti, because for the longest time the Yeti was my favorite cryptid, just because, well, for me, growing up in Orange County, I was always close to Disneyland.
Mm,
And I like the Matterhorn because it was
Mhm.
like the scariest ride ever, and it has a Yeti in it.
yeah.
So to me, I was like, oh, this is already is awesome. And then we started doing the podcast, looking into the Yeti, the history of it. Tom Slick, Jimmy Stewart's involved in
Yeah.
shenanigans. At one point, even the Nazis were trying to capture one to use in the war.
Yeah.
Alexander the Great. It's sick.
Yeah.
I don't.
It's wild.
There's a lot with the Yeti, so he's definitely probably one of my all-time favorites. But like Jasmine said, yes and no, because
Mhm.
I appreciate him. I love the Yeti. There's a lot to it. But in 2020, I think we did a little video blog or something. I feel like we did like, oh, what's our favorite cryptids going into that year? And I said the Pukwudgie. Because the Pukwudgies, they're little tiny guys that live in the forest. They're really good with poison arrows. But with the mythology, they got together, they went out to find God, found God, and killed him. And I was like, that's inspiration, it speaks to the Gilgamesh in all of us. But choosing the Pukwudgie and then 2020 going the way it did, I think we actually kind of killed God. So living in this post-apocalyptic hellhole, I think my new cryptid is the cactus cat.
Yes. Oh
No
my
way.
God. What
No
a
way.
cutie.
After all the existentialism and the god killing, I think the cactus cat is my new favorite cryptid to settle on for a while. Take a break.
That's valid.
So
Wild.
And it's only going to get more wilder as we go into this new year, folks.
It is. We have some fun things planned. We got a new tome coming up. We'll be recording a couple of episodes here very soon that'll be released. So stay tuned. We're excited for 2022.
Oh, it's going to be awesome, and we're excited to have you come along with us.
We are.
Yeah, we are. And I think we're going to be implementing some new stuff. Let us know if it works, if it doesn't.
Yeah. Definitely
guys are
want
like-
feedback.
If you guys are like, you know what, you guys suck now, go back to the format of the first episode. Like that was the best one you guys ever did, and it's just been downhill since. Let us know. We could go back to
Politely.
we could
Politely.
go back to doing 3 cryptids in half an hour.
No.
Yeah. If you want us to retackle the Bronze Age,
Oh
go
God.
take a hike.
Go take a hike.
But thanks so much for joining us for this kickoff episode, guys. It was a little different than our normal format because we wanted to reminisce. We wanted to, get together, talk about what 2021 gave us, and look forward to 2022.
And we hope you do too. Anyways, thanks everyone for listening to this episode. It would be great if you guys left us a rating on like Spotify or Apple Podcasts or whatever you're listening on. If you're watching the YouTube video, be sure to hit like, comment, subscribe. That helps us out. Share it with your friends. Check us out on the social medias. That's at Cryptid Campfire on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Check out our website. That's cryptidcampfire.com for exclusive merchandise. Additionally, if you've done all those things, consider subscribing to our Patreon page. $5 a month gets you access to exclusive episodes as well as a wallpaper designed by our very own Alexander Daikaiju. And that's that. That's all.
Woohoo.
Oh, wait, no.
No, it's not.
I forgot the segue. Yes, speaking of artwork designed by Alexander Daikaiju, there's so much you can see of Alexander Daikaiju's work. And where can we find that, friend?
Yes. Hello. I'm Alex Daikaiju. You can find me on Instagram at Alex Daikaiju. That's Alex DAIKAIJU. Post a lot of monster, cryptid related artwork. And with this new year, I'm hoping to stay more active, post some new behind the scenes sketches as I start doing more final products. So please come along and check it out. I also make comics if you're interested. And normally I say sources here, but the only sources was this great friendship that I have with Jasmine and Eli. So I'm going to pass it off to Jasmine. Take it away.
Thank you so much. I had so much fun today, guys. I love hanging out with you. If you'd like to follow me on social media, you can do so on Instagram and Twitter. My name is the same on both platforms. It's just my full name, Jasmine Maywith. That's JasmineMaewith.
Heck yeah. And he's still riding the high from watching Spider-Man No Way Home from the theater. It's the Eli Watson.
Hello, you can follow me at the Eli Watson on Instagram. That, my friends, concludes this episode.
Well,
We're ready. Let's go. Next home, 2022. Here we go.
Yeah.
Have a good one. See you next week.
Bye, Mzinga.
This podcast is a part of Straight Up Strange Productions. Discover more shows like this one at straightupstrange.com.